Pokemon, one of the best-selling games of all time. Today we are doing a 100 days challenge inside of Pixelmon. Our goal is simple, be the best. I want the most powerful legendary, a Mewtwo, and I want some other legendaries. I want to have killed a raid boss, the most powerful boss in the game, and I want to have filled my Poke Index for Gen 1, and I want a Pikachu. I think they look cute. I'll be playing on Pokeland, and if you'd like to join me, I'll be on for the next few hours after this video goes live. To learn how to download the mod pack, check out the tutorial in the description. With that being said, let's begin our journey to becoming the most powerful Pokemon trainer of all time. On April 17th, there's a tournament for $700 on the server. Link in description for more details. You bet your sweet life I'll be there. Day 1. Upon logging into the server, it had me pick my first starting Pokemon. I know this is going to be crazy controversial, but Squirtle is the best, so I picked him. After you pick your starter Pokemon, they have you walk around the lobby so you can understand how the game works. Apparently there's a cash prize tournament for 500 USD. As soon as I totally read all the rules and regulations and speed ran the tutorial area, I ran right to the shop so I could figure out how to break the economy. After doing some research into the shop, I went out into the world and I found my first Pokemon. It was time to start my first battle ever. To battle a Pokemon, all you have to do is hit R, which will throw your Pokemon selected at the current Pokemon you're looking at. After you do that, it'll give you some moveset options, and you can then attack the Pokemon. The next day, I figured out a way to get out of spawn, finally by using /RTP, and I found this Whisper that was just giving me an evil eye, so I decided to fully attack it. I then found this magical screen that gives you rewards, and it gave me a bunch of shard keys and crate keys. Not sure what these do yet, but we'll figure that out later. The RTP command kept teleporting me to places inside of spawn, and I was quite confused how to actually start my adventure on the server, so I messaged a mod. I then discovered that my crate keys were for crates. Fancy that, so I typed in /warp crates, and I went over there to see what loot I could find. The crates were amazing. They gave me a bunch of high-level Pokemon. One was level 24 and one was level 41. This would be amazing as I wouldn't have to spend so much time on the grindy early stages. The next day I began to mercilessly beat up random Pokemon. I found out that Clang had an epic attack called Charge Beam and it absolutely obliterated low-level Pokemons. While roaming the beach I found this absolutely terrifying beast and decided to take it out. However, it didn't want the smoke. I kept throwing my Pokeball at it and it didn't want to fight. I knew you were too scared. I then ran around the wild and began right-clicking every berry and bush I could find. There's different things that can give you different Pokemon balls later in the game, so I figured I should start now with the farming. I then found out that my Pokemon were not immortal and actually take damage, so I typed in /warp heal, and I put my Pokemon inside this lunchbox looking thing, and they all healed up just fine. The best part is, it's free. The next day I began roaming the wild again, leveling up my Pokemon so I could do some more interesting things. However, when I engaged this Pokemon, I tried throwing a mud slap at him. Unfortunately, I didn't realize the level disparity, and he absolutely obliterated me. So for revenge, I took out Clang, and I beamed him into far existence. Right next to that battle, there was a Machoke, and come on, the guy was literally flexing in front of me. I had to fight him. So I took out Clang, and I was ready to absolutely obliterate him. And then he killed me. I began the next day by checking out the player arenas. Soon I'd be here conquering the best Pokemon trainers on the server. I then discovered that the server had some sort of daycare to put your Pokemon in, that would then level them up and also teach them different abilities. However, I never really figured this out throughout the series. More crate keys. I started the next few days by chopping down trees. I finally picked a location for my house so I could start storing all my valuable items. I wanted to go with a modern house design, something like quartz and some sort of terracotta, and maybe some dark oak wood to sort of accent it all. If I was going to be the best Pokemon trainer on the server, I needed a house that fit that. Then out of nowhere, the server notified me that a new hunt was happening. A hunt is where a random Pokemon is selected, and if you kill it, you'll get selected rewards. So I began looking for this Pokemon to end off the day, Esper. The next day, while looking for some more Pokemons, I found this base in the middle of a swamp. Not exactly sure who wants to build their base in a swamp, but this fellow did. Apparently, these squares that you're seeing right here are for breeding, and different squares apply to different Pokemon who like different elements to breed on. Who likes to breed on dispensers? The next day, I discovered from all these crates I was getting something called rare candies. When you right-click on a Pokemon with a rare candy, they level up, and every few levels they're going to give you a new moveset. So I was going through Blastoise trying to figure out what movesets I wanted, while I was trying to level them up as well. Day 10, I did some more exploring around the server. I found this area that you can train EVs in. From the best of my understanding, EVs just boost your stats to a certain degree. I'm not exactly sure how this works, but we'll find out more later. I then found out there was a warp for training. This would be a lot easier to level up your Pokemon XP-wise. I of course went to the hardest level of this dungeon, and I knew the only mob I was going to be able to take on right now was a Raticat, because they just kind of suck. So I attacked it with vengeance and I barely survived, but I did win. The next day I spent most of my time at warp training. To my knowledge, the way that you catch higher Pokemon is by having higher Pokemon yourself, so I knew if I spent a lot of time here I could level up my Pokemon, therefore spawning higher Pokemon around me. Although warp training is great, you can't actually catch Pokemon in here, you still need to catch them in the wild. This is only for XP grinding, so I knew if I had some high level Pokemon I could then go out and catch some higher level Pokemon. The next day I started out the day by continually grinding the Pokemon. You see, not only did I need XP, but I also needed money, and all these drops you could sell inside of the shop for more money so that I could begin building my house even bigger and bigger. I then discovered there was a warp for mining, so I went over there to try and raise some more money so I could build more of my house. After a good stint of mining, I sold all of my ores to the shopkeeper, and then I bought a bunch of blocks to go and back and build my house. I started out the next day by acquiring all the nether quartz inside of the world. Thinking back, I probably should have kept the nether quartz that I sold to the shopkeeper originally. I spent most of the next day just building my house and getting all the measurements right and trying to envision what I wanted for the future. On day 16, something called a raid happened inside of the chat, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm prepared for this. So I ran up to the raid ready to take on that ginormous Pokemon I saw in front of me, but he despawned right as I got there. Ha, he knew I was going to do too much damage. I began the next day by showcasing my house. Look at this beauty. I then transferred all of my items inside from outside because only peasants have chests in the wild. After doing that, I did some more, you guessed it, crate opening so I could exploit the server's economy. The next day, I found this thing called a Poke Loot in the wild. When you right-click it, it can give you Pokeballs or different items inside of the game. I then began just searching for Pokemon in the wild. I attacked this menacing bird of the air and I destroyed it. I was doing a lot of research on Pokemon to try and figure out what was the best approach to how to win the game. I discovered that you wanted a water Pokemon, and the easiest one to get was something called a Magikarp. So I went out and I used an Ultra Ball on it and I caught it. I started out the next day by eradicating this Pokemon that was lingering around my house. I then went back to warp training. I wanted to level up my Magikarp, so I threw him on the ground and I hit the splash attack. Okay. Why is that doing anything? What the heck? It doesn't do any damage. Wait, does it not do any damage? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. After realizing I was going to face immense embarrassment in the comment section for using an Ultra Ball on that guy, I decided to quickly switch him out and pretend that I never caught him in the first place. The next day I began abusing my YouTube power. Apparently I had access to a warp called Warp Bosses, so I headed over there to see what all the fuss was about. I then decided it was a good idea to attack this large tumorous looking fellow and take him on for his epic loot. I then won the battle with ease, and I got $1 million from killing him. It was a great time. I then embarrassed myself a bit more by attacking some more bosses inside of the arena. I quickly discovered I was not ready for this place. Day 21. Even though I knew I wasn't ready for this boss arena, I saw some Magikarp bosses, and I thought to myself, wait a second, if my Magikarp can't attack anybody, can these guys? So I gave it a shot. Apparently they can't do any damage. Oh, sweet money they would bring. I also discovered that my Blastoise was strong enough to take on a Bidoof, so I took him on as well. Day 22. I spent the day organizing all of my chests and putting these beautiful signs on them so I could find everything when I was looking for it. The next day started out by this woolly thing that was invading my territory, but I decided just to leave it alone. I then began the creation of my first apricorn farm. Apricorns are made to use Pokeballs later. I started out the next day by discovering you can actually ride your Pokemon. However, while riding Blastoise, I realized that there was another raid going on, so I had to figure out how to get off of him. It was this ginormous flying Mewtwo. I found out Mewtwo was just a clone of a Mew that had gone into a toxic trait and become a legendary Pokemon. Apparently it's very strong and a very endgame Pokemon, and ever since I saw it here, I really wanted it inside of the game. After finishing in something like 7th place, we'll just say it was first, I collected my raid rewards. The next day, I'd been doing some research into some Pokemon that I wanted, and I figured out that I really wanted a Gengar. Apparently they do a lot of damage and they're not too hard to find. But to get a Gengar, you need a Ghastly. A Ghastly is the first step in the evolution to a Gengar, so I went to the Nether to try and find one. After some convincing, Ghastly decided to become my own Pokemon, and I threw him inside of my PC. Ghastly would become a big part of my team later down the line. Since I found him so quickly, I decided to explore the Nether a little bit more. I challenged some more Pokemons and grabbed some more XP, but nothing too exciting happened. The next day, I wanted to start leveling up Ghastly so he could become part of my team, so I could start taking on tougher bosses inside of the game. After he leveled up a bit from killing other monsters, I decided to use some candies on him to max him out to the next level, and he evolved into what's called the Haunter. I spent the rest of the day just clearing out mobs inside of the training center. I knew if I could get a really high level Haunter, I could use him to take on some epic bosses inside of the game. As soon as I was able to take on bosses consistently, I knew I'd start leveling up and I could start going for legendaries. The next day, I headed back to the Nether. There was a certain Pokemon I wanted inside of the Nether that was a dog-like creature. I'd found him right away the first time I'd come in, so I figured finding him would be really easy. But I spent a lot of time searching and I never found another one. The next day, I was still inside of the Nether, and I found this giant turtle-looking thing. I thought it was enormous, and I thought it was really cool, and I must have been rare, right? So I decided to take it on. My Haunter wasn't doing a lot of damage to it, which was a perfect thing, because I really needed a defensive Pokemon, and this guy was just sucking up all the attacks my Haunter was throwing at him. So eventually I decided I was going to catch him. I had to use an Ultra Ball just to be on the safe side, because I wasn't sure if he was rare at this point. I found this Pokemon called an Impidimp. Impidimp. I thought it was a funny name, so I decided to try my new Turtonator on him. Turtonator doesn't do a lot of damage, but he sucks a lot of damage up. Like, you throw anything at this guy, and he's just like, nah. Unfortunately, he can't really dish out damage either, though. The next day, I was still searching for this dog, but I could not find him anywhere. So I took on some other Pokemon, and I grabbed some cool items from them, but I wasn't able to actually capture any because I wasn't really interested in the ones I was finding. I couldn't find the silly dog. Now that I had a 100 level Blastoise and some other decent Pokemon, I decided it would be a great idea to go attack some bosses. I figured at this point I could at least take on those pimply looking things called the Weezings. So I headed back there and I took one on, and I was so close, but unfortunately my level 15 Clarify couldn't pull off the victory. Saddened at the fact that I just lost to a giant pimply looking thing, I decided to go kill some Bidoofs and some Magikarps to ease my swelling ego. The next day I found out that Charmanders only have a 1% chance of spawning, but I really wanted one, so I decided to go to an extreme hills biome and try and find one. While on my way there, I was distracted by this yellow bush that I thought was a Pikachu. I then found this thing that looked like a lump of coal with some lava on it, so I decided to throw my Haunter at it and see if I could take it on. I then also found some more loot while I was looking for my Charizard. It was taking way too long for me to find my Charizard, and I heard that people sold them in shops. So I went out and checked out this guy's shop to see if I could see how much he sold them for. 90,000 coins? What the frick? Screw you. After that hopeless attempt to sidetrack the amount of time it would take to find a Charmander, I decided to just go back to the extreme hills and battle Pokemon while I waited. Yeah, that's right, Drifloon, dodge and weave, dodge and weave. Found another Carbink. Killed it. At the beginning of the next day, I found what was called a Mewtwo. Apparently this is a very rare Pokemon, so I decided to capture it. I then found this thing that reminded me of gravel. I really hate gravel. Found some more Poke Loot. I was still searching for my Charmander, but I found what was called the Jangmo. Apparently these can evolve into what's called a pseudo-legendary. Pseudo-legendaries aren't quite as good as legendaries, but they're sort of like one step down, but still a great step for anything that I had so far, so I decided to try and capture it. A few moments later and a few damage points to my Haunter, and the Jangmo was mine. And then, I'm not even kidding you, the 1% spawn chance as I turned around from my Jangmo. It was Charmander. And I was not letting him get away. I knew if I used any of the attacks on my Haunter to try and damage him a little bit to make him easier to catch, he would instantly kill him, so I made sure just to throw Ultra Balls at him until I got him. And then I secured him. The Charmander. My most favorite Pokemon. I then decided I wasn't flexing on peasants enough with just my YouTube rank, so I decided to create some golden armor and an Elytra and enchant them. The next day, I decided I wanted to start ranking up my Charmander. Eventually, Charmander evolves into Charizard, and he's one of the most powerful Pokemon inside of the game, and I really wanted him, so I went right to training. While training, another boss event happened, and I decided to jump right in to get more boss raid loot. When I went to get my raid rewards, it gave me absolutely nothing, and I felt scammed. The next day, I decided to go and complain to these Magikarps over my previous raid loss experience. I then went back to training Charmander, who is now Charmeleon. And then the moment came. From Charmander to Charmeleon to Charizard. Finally, my first powerful Pokemon. And dang, does he look cool. I had heard that Mews spawn inside of jungle biomes, so I thought the most intelligent thing to do was by myself and jump inside of a jungle biome and look for a Mew. If you don't know, Mews actually turn into Mewtwo's when you clone them. They have a slight chance of turning into a Ditto, unfortunately, but they have a higher probability if you use diamond blocks to get them into a Mewtwo. A Mewtwo is an absolutely beast legendary Pokemon that I really wanted, but unfortunately I wasn't able to find a Mew this time. The next day when I was back in my house, I found this poodle-like looking thing that wanted to attack me, so I decided I would attack it back. I hate poodles. Later that day, a tiny trainer came by my house and tried to declare that he wanted to fight my Pokemon. So I took out my level 37 Charizard and absolutely obliterated him. The next day, I went back to the boss's warp. I figured with a Charizard now, maybe I would stand a chance. First, I collected all the loot that people had dropped. There were so many experience orbs and just things I could level up my Charizard with. I then tried fighting Pimplehead again, but unfortunately I failed and he absolutely obliterated me. Time to keep working on the Pokemon. I started out the next day by selling all the loot I'd gotten from the boss warp and just collecting all of it all over the ground. It was great. I spent the rest of the day looking for the hunt. I could not find the Pokemon they were looking for, the Kartana one, so I just gave up eventually. I then found out as a YouTuber I have access to fight these bosses, and they level up your Pokemon like crazy. So I took my Charizard there and I began farming them for a while to get him as high of a level as I could. The next day I started work on an underground room. This was going to be for something later in the series. However, I quickly got distracted, reminding myself that my Charizard was maxed out and I hadn't tried him on these bosses yet. Charizard is great for farming these Magikarp. He basically 2 shots, sometimes 3 shots, any Bidoof or Magikarp around. I started out the next day by selling all the goodies I'd gotten from killing all those Magikarp. Aha, Houndour, that's what he's called. He's that nether dog I was looking for earlier. Apparently I found him. But anyway, here's him evolving. Ha, you didn't think I was going to leave that low-level trainer alone, did you? No way, so I attacked him. His rhinoceros-looking dude absolutely murdered my Houndour, but as soon as I took out my Charizard, he absolutely obliterated everybody. I thought this was important to note. Later that day, I found this Pokemon-looking mushroom thing, and I decided to capture it. No specific reason, it just looked really funky and, weird. The next day, I was approached by an Abra. I really hate snakes, so I decided to obliterate it. I then discovered there's different orbs, and when you fill these orbs with souls of other Pokemon, you can actually spawn in legendaries. However, to acquire one of these orbs, I could do one of 2 things. I could purchase it on the player market for 30,000 coins, ha, bish bosh, or I could find it inside of this boss dungeon. Apparently it has a 50% chance of dropping. However, I've killed about 10 legendary bosses and I haven't gotten one, so I don't think that stat is necessarily true. The next day I gave up for a little while and I decided to start working some more on that giant hole I was digging underneath my house. I was digging out this large cavernous area for a very specific reason. There's an endgame thing you can do inside of Pokemon, but you need a large area to do it. I decided I wanted to do it underground because I can't build for the heck of me, so I decided if it was underground it would look a little bit better. So I spent the next day, well, in this place. I had no idea this existed inside of Pokemon. Some random man decided to say, hey, Mudflaps, teleport to me, so I did so. And he spawned me in this alternate dimension. Apparently it's called Ultra Space, and inside of Ultra Space, these things called Ultra Beasts spawn. And I was like, ooh, I want myself one of those. So I inquired, hey, how often do Ultra Beasts spawn? And they said, it's about less than Mews, less than legendaries. And I said, oh. Well, I'm leaving. Something fun about Ultra Space, though, is that there's less gravity there, so when you jump around, you float a little bit. However, fall off the edge and you die in the void. However, I still spent the next day exploring Ultra Space. I just kind of ran around for a while looking at some of the builds and some of the loots on the ground. You know, I figured, hey, YouTuber luck, maybe I'll find an Ultra Beast. Spoiler alert, I did not. The next day, I was minding my own business, mining some rocks inside of my basement, when another raid happened. I quickly ran over to see this large deer-like object. I was like, holy crap, that thing is big, I want to attack it. The next day, out of the blue, a visitor came to my house, and I didn't like him, but apparently he was rare, so I decided to try and catch him. I used way too many Great Balls and Ultra Balls on him, only to find out later that not only is he not that rare, but he's also kind of a sucky Pokemon. But he looks kind of cool. Although some people would say he doesn't, but I think he does. I, of course, eventually captured him like a PogChamp. The next day, while I was minding my own business, killing random Pokemon, another trainer spawned. What's up with these guys? They just think they can take me on, so I obliterated him. The next day, I found out there was a casino on the server, so I ran right in to check it out. These look like slot machines over here, but I'm not quite sure what they do. Of course, there's just more crates in here, so I tried to figure out how to buy a crate key. But upon buying one, I was scammed. I didn't actually get the crate key. I lost the clip of it, but I did indeed end up buying that orb for 30,000 coins from the market. Oh well. Anyway, when you combine it with a static charge, you get an orb for the static, or something like that. What ends up happening is after you kill enough Pokemon, you get their souls instead of the orb, and eventually you can spawn a legendary Pokemon. I was going for the legendary Pokemon Zapdos because he looked really cool and he was really tall and he was a bird and I could fly on him, and I like birds. I spent the next day grinding out the training center, trying to fill up my orb so I could spawn in Zapdos. I used Charizard and he was able to kill most of these guys in 2 or 3 hits. I was tired of farming for a bit, so I decided to go home and start mining out my basement some more. I spent the next day still mining. I really wanted a giant cavernous room to fill in so I could spawn what I wanted to spawn at the end of the game. You know, there's something therapeutic about mining blocks endlessly. I don't know what it is, but I could just waste hours doing this. But it was time to move on to something else. The next day, a man was kind enough to trade me a Bulbasaur, and in exchange I gave him some rare candies. It was a great trade. I then went back to the boss arena and started fighting some more Magikarp, and they gave me these wicked glasses. I spent the next day farming even more bosses. I needed some more loot for this thing I wanted to spawn a little bit later. It was also filling my orb, so that was good too. I then went back to the Pimple Man boss and decided to attack him again. Thankfully, I was strong enough this time, and I was able to pull off the win. The next day, I decided to go to the move relearner and to relearn some of the moves on my Pokemon. I wanted the absolute strongest moves I could get, so that I could absolutely obliterate the legendaries. For Charizard, I decided to go with Flame Blitz, Wing Attack, Ember, and Fire Fang. My senpai told me these are the strongest moves. For Blastoise, my sensei told me to do Rain Dance, Flash Cannon, Hydro Pump, and Skull Bash. With my new moveset, I went back to the war bosses to see if I could take on another one of those pimply guys, and I absolutely obliterated them. The next day, I decided to explore the wild a little bit and see if I could find some rare Pokemon. The first thing I found was a Hatenna. I decided to kill it. I then found some random Pokeloot on the ground, and I found some retro mail. Not exactly sure who considers this loot. I took out my Jangmo and I tried to kill this Deerling, and I got absolutely obliterated, and then I remembered that I hadn't done anything to my Jangmo. The next day was spent mercilessly killing other Pokemon as well. I found this cool loot inside of this weird treehouse thing. I decided I wanted to level up my Jangmo to see what it could evolve into. Apparently it would evolve into a pseudo-legendary, so I attacked this Poodle that I don't really like. I then found this thing that looked like green beans, and I really hate green beans, so I decided to kill it. I took it out with ease. I then killed the Easter Bunny. Sorry about that, guys. And then, out of the blue, a Pikachu spawned, and I knew I needed to take advantage of this. So I threw down my Turtonator so he could take the hits, and then I got up my Pokeballs. I used an Ultra Ball because normal Pokemon Balls are for peasants, and I captured him on my first try. I was going to kill this snake because I really hate snakes, but I saw someone's Airbock evolve into something really cool, so I figured I would catch it and then do some more research later. The next day I wanted to try out my new Pikachu because apparently he does lightning things, so I started shooting things around. He doesn't do that much damage as a level 50, but I'm excited to start leveling him up. I spent the next day filling up my orb some more. Remember, I need like 300 and something souls in this thing to spawn Zapdos, so I just went to the easiest level because that makes the most sense and took up my Charizard and began mauling everybody in sight. I continued this merciless slaughter the next day until I had filled up my orb almost halfway. I wanted to get some of my EVs maxed out on Charizard, so I took them to the EV Center and I began maxing them out. I started out the next day by stashing all of my Pokeloot, finding all the XP things that I had and putting them on my Pokemon to level them up. I then began researching how to make Ultra Balls. I didn't want to be a peasant and go around with normal Pokemon balls like an average loser, so I decided I would figure out how to make these Ultra Balls. Each type of Pokeball needs different apricorn to craft the head of it. Unfortunately, the one that I needed I didn't have any of, so I planted some more apricorn trees so that they would grow the colors that I needed, and I went to do something else. I spent the next day mining out some more flint. No, just kidding, I was mining a big hole in my basement still. Day 69. I spent the rest of the day still mining out that hole in my basement. It was almost time to actually start building in it finally. The next day, I finally finished the giant hole in my basement. It was time to start building. I wanted to go with a basic theme. Some dark oak wood and some birch wood. And then maybe a ceiling of like black concrete or black terracotta or something. Because what was going to be built down here, I wanted sort of an ominous, darker look to it. I got tired of hanging out in my basement and I went off to the jungle. Me and my friend over here decided it would be a good idea to try and catch a Mew. They have a horribly low spawn rate chance inside of a jungle, but we decided we would try and up that chance by tearing down the entire Amazon rainforest. The next day, we recruited more help and we continued with our deforestation efforts. Everyone loves a montage of chopping down trees, so let's roll that.
I just wanna feel free, and I just wanna be me. Yeah, I just wanna go so crazy. I just wanna be a freak. Yeah, I just wanna rise to the top. Yeah, I just wanna go reach the peak. So I've been really well focused on success. Hey, y'all will see. Yeah, you don't see that I will get it, cause I'm really focused, man. I make it with the rap and I just follow my path. I just follow my passion. To me, this is what's precious. Yeah, in my soul, man, I can feel it. So every single verse, man, I just gotta go and kill it, man. I gotta be the kid. I could be the guy taking you wild. I could be the villain, but good as a kid. Lately I'm painting my path on my way. Yeah, I got no time that I can waste, so I've been sitting in the space. Yeah, making rest every day, man. You know that I go insane. Yeah, I hit you with a bullet to the brain. Let us stop first, cause we going insane.
The next day, a raid happened, so I immediately spawned in and I took my strongest Pokemon and I decided to get the best raid loot ever. The next day, I wanted to focus on getting my Pokemon leveled up a little bit. I wanted to get my first pseudo-legendary, which is a Jangmo. So I got my epic candies out and I decided to start feeding them to it. And then it evolved into a Hakamo. And then finally, it evolved into its final form of the pseudo-legendary. I then decided to take my new Como to the boss's arena to see how well he would face up against some legendaries. Day 78, I took my new pseudo-legendary to the boss arena and I began smacking around some more Magikarp to get their money and their loot. I had a big idea coming up and I needed more loot for it. Day 78, while doing some house maintenance, I decided to ride on my new pseudo-legendary. So I just rode him around for a little while. It was quite fun. The next day, with all my new Pokemon, I decided it was time to start taking on some gyms. I wanted to prove to everybody that I was no longer a weak sauce. I found out that Blastoise has this absolutely overpowered attack called Water Cannon, and it absolutely obliterates any low-level Pokemon. Seeing how powerful Blastoise is, I developed a strategy. Simply start out with my weaker Pokemon, damage them, then take out Blastoise, and absolutely obliterate what they have left. I was able to take out the Water Leader next. The next day, I went for the level 50 trainer. I was really excited for this guy because he was going to be the toughest one yet. I started out with just my basic Como to attack his Venusaur. However, he disabled my Como, so I had to take out my Blastoise. The problem was his Pokemon kept healing, so I needed something to one-shot them. I ended off the battle with good old Venusaur, and I was able to take down the trainer's last Pokemon and take the victory royale. I decided to take a break from those trainers before I went to any higher levels. I wanted to start filling my orb because I really wanted my Zapdos. The next day, I was still grinding to fill up my orb, but by the end of the day, we were able to fill it up finally. I accidentally went AFK for most of this day, but when I finally got back to my computer and realized that I had left it on, I quickly tried right-clicking my Orb of the Souls down on the ground to spawn Zapdos, but apparently that's not how you do it. Oh my goodness, no. It looks like Josh. Look at his eye. This is so stupid. After I did some research, I found out that I actually had to right-click this orb on a shrine. I was not looking forward to fighting this shrine in the wild. But then someone alerted me that you can actually do it on this server by simply doing /warp shrines. Ha, I love how servers make everything easier. So I warped to the shrines, and I spawned in my legendary Zapdos. I thought I was just going to get him, but apparently you actually have to catch him. So I made sure to take out the best ball that I had, my Master Ball, and I caught him. He had pretty decent IVs, which was a great catch for a legendary. Spawning in Zapdos gave me another crate key. I love these things. So I went to the event crate and I opened it up, and it gave me some more universal shards. PogChamp. One of the most powerful players on the server challenged me to a duel, and I was not one to reject it, but I knew I needed to level up Charizard a little bit more. So I went to the mountaintops and we trained. We got the EVs up, and we looked into each other's eyes and we said, "We will win this." Oh, I also made him into a female. That's also what I did. The next day, as I was waiting for my opponent to climb out of his little hole, I decided to mine more of my basement out. It was starting to look semi-decent now that I was able to place blocks, and it was almost to the point where I could start doing what I wanted to do at the endgame. Day 88, it was time to face him. Rusty. The battle was furious. The Pokemon fought each other with everything they had in them. I think the fact that I still don't know exactly what my moves do and I don't exactly know what Pokemon counter what Pokemon, sort of played a role in me not being able to kill even one of his. After that embarrassing defeat, I decided to go back to my house and begin building some more in my basement. And now, the great reveal. The basement was for one reason and one reason only. To make a breeding system. You see, inside of Pokemon, you can breed what you have. I actually converted my Charizard to a female for one specific reason. I wanted to start breeding Charizards. In the endgame, when you have a perfect IV Charizard, you can start breeding it and you can start selling them for crazy amounts on the market. But I just wanted to tinker inside of breeding and show you guys how it worked. They tried to sell me a rancher, which is what is required for breeding, for an absurd amount of money, so I decided just to make it myself. Apparently Gengar and Charizard are not in the same egg group. Apparently you need specific egg groups for this crap. Oh boy. Alright, this is breeding explained by a dummy for dummies. Essentially, you need 2 Pokemon inside of the same egg group. They can then mate. However, to make them mate, they need a certain type of block around them. Each type of Pokemon has a certain block that they like. Apparently, this dude over here likes Moss Stone, which, for those of you who didn't know, is apparently not Mossy Cobblestone. It is indeed actually called Moss Stone. How stupid is that? After tinkering around with it for a while, I found out that they also like grass. I went and purchased some, and they got on their breeding trip. This was going to take a while, so I headed off to do something else. All of a sudden, chat lit up, and it said that there was an event going on the server, so I quickly joined it to see what all the fuss was about. Apparently, this event was going to be us sumo wrestling each other on top of a bit of lava. It seemed like a great idea. Of course, I wasn't filming when my turn came, but let's just say that I won. It was a great experience, and I totally won. Yep, did not get knocked off the edge into lava. Nope. I realized at this point that I still needed a Mew, so I headed back to the jungle and I began searching for him every day and every night. While looking for him, I found another legendary, and I took him on.
I don't want to kill him by accident. Como I don't think will kill him. Let's do Dragon Tail. Let's do Zapdos. Go with Zapdos. But it failed. Let's do Pluck. I can't be too. Oh, I killed him! Gosh darn it.
I was not ending this series off without a Mew, so I got some of my friends to come and help me, because the more people you have inside of a jungle, the higher chance of a Mew will spawn. And then on day 98, my friend said that he spotted one, so I quickly ran over to him, and there he was, a Mew. For those of you who don't know, if you put a Mew into a cloning chamber, he becomes a Mewtwo. I was absolutely ecstatic, and I'm still shaking right now. I was taking no chances that this guy would despawn, so I threw a Master Ball at him, I waited, and then I caught him. The chat went crazy, and I was so excited that I could finally participate in something cool. Somebody had told me that if you leave a Mew too long in your PC, he'll actually despawn or turn into something else, so I knew I needed to get him to a Mewtwo as fast as I could, so I ran back to my house and I began selling all of my worldly possessions so I could buy a cloner. After I was able to purchase a cloning machine, I brought it back to my new basement and I placed it down, and I placed the Mew inside. However, it told me that I needed 3 diamond blocks for the best chance for it to emerge into a Mewtwo. But I just sold all my diamonds. A kind mod named Yonikin gave me 3 diamond blocks since I was struggling so hard and I was afraid my Mew was going to despawn or something. So I grabbed them and I did my first cloning for my Mewtwo. It was a Ditto. I'm not exactly sure what a Ditto is, but it's called a Ditto. After thinking that I lost out, I found out that you actually get 3 attempts with Mew to make it into a Mewtwo, so I tried again. It was a Ditto again. On day 99, I noticed that the egg had been birthed, so I went and grabbed it, and I decided I wanted to hatch it. Now to hatch these eggs, you actually need to walk around a lot. Each egg is dependent on how much you have to walk. For this guy, I had to walk 5,500 freaking blocks. The next day, I was still walking around. I was so close. I really wanted to spawn him in before I tried to get my Mewtwo.
Yeah, they can breed them. Yes, baby Charmander. Where is it? Oh, there it is.
After hatching my Charmander, I decided to go and face my ultimate fate. Would I get a Mewtwo with the final iteration? Who knows? As the machine worked and it began to spawn, oh no. Oh no. Oh no! The end of 100 days in Pixelmon. Make sure to join the server as I'll be on for the next few hours after this video goes live. Also make sure to check out my friend's channel who is also doing 100 days. If you want to see a 200 days video, feel free to comment down below. I started out this adventure not even knowing how to catch a Pokemon, and I feel like I've come a long way. This game is quite fun. With that being said though, I will see you in the next one. Peace out. If you want to find out if that last Mew turned into a Mewtwo, make sure to join the server and come hang out, and I will show you, possibly, if it actually evolved.